By delivering a promise of a major trophy for Tottenham Hotspur, performances elsewhere could not be ignored. The Ange Postecoglu era is over. A season of highs, lows, celebrations and toxic exchanges all comes to an end as Brentford manager Thomas Frank looks to be the man to take over Ange's position in charge of the Lilywhites. Now I'm sure as you've seen, the sacking of Ange Postecoglu has everybody divided on whether or not it was a good decision, not just Spurs fans. But Ange is gone. Nothing is changing that. Spurs are moving forward and are doing so with Thomas Frank. To give a small overview of what I'll be discussing more deeply later, Thomas Frank is a very well adaptable tactician, family culture like coach that platforms each player nicely, readjusts player roles to great effect, maximises the most out of his group, a very clear communicator that's coached attacking football, possession football, counter-attacking football to great success. He and his coaching team really maximises the most out of their squad, really zooming in on the finer details such as long throw-ins, kickoffs, set pieces, crosses, etc., looking to be the difference and to win them football matches. Let's have a look at the 24-25 Brentford side and compare it to Ange's Tottenham. So here we can see Brentford on the left and Spurs on the right. Let's give a quick run through. Here we can tell, of course, Brentford were much better last season. Everybody knows this. We can gather Brentford share less time with the ball, but translate that time into scoring goals and creating chances, as seen by the next few columns. But on average, they shoot much closer to the opposition goal than Ange's sides. They hit the ball long and direct much more, they execute more through balls, and then off the ball, they win a lot of tackles in the attacking third, showing their successful off-the-ball approach when pressing high. Overall, they are a little bit more stronger defensively than Spurs, and Ange's side made more errors leading to a shot. Quite a few more actually, but the most notable aspect towards the bottom is that Brentford goalkeeper Mark Flecken, who's now moved to Bayer Leverkusen, was put to test a lot. Only Southampton made more saves per 90. Something definitely to keep in mind. But from this we can gather that Thomas Frank has transformed Brentford's attacking game, meaning this is something you can expect to be translated across and maintained statistically to a sense, as there was success for this for Ange in this department. But overall you'd expect Thomas Frank to make it within his best efforts to solidify Spurs as an all-round outfit. So let's take a good look at how he did that for Brentford and how he could do that for Tottenham Hotspur. If you'd like a more detailed version of his Brentford side, then feel free to click at the top right about now. But to summarise, they operate in a 4-4-2/4-2-3-1 like shape that was an enjoyable, entertaining, direct but controlling style of play that off the ball consists of a high man-to-man aggressive press that tests a player athleticism and anticipation. On the ball, they mix short intricate passes with direct ones that aim for that quick pacey forward line. To achieve a Thomas Frank side, these are the demands in each position. If you have a look across the different positions, there's something in common with all the players from deep, and that's being comfortable on the ball. Frank demands his players must be comfortable with the ball in their first touch and when under pressure. Every player has got to run and has got to do their job. The Premier League is probably at its peak in physicality and athleticism, and probably at its peak in quality outside of those top clubs. So you need good technicality and good athleticism to compete to win games. Brentford though through the phases share similar shapes and build-up. Within that first phase in the low build-up, it's a 4-2-4 like shape. Nothing too crazy. In the middle third, it shifts and has shifted a little this year to a 4-1-5 like shape, or a 3-2-5 when the right back progresses forwards. To present a good example of Frank's adaptability and platforming of his players, this is certainly one. Rico Henry was injured all year. They're starting left back. That's now a lack of choice at left back. They don't really have anyone there. Keane Lewis Potter was a left winger, not getting much game time. Frank then utilised him at left back. He pushed up as a left winger in possession because the left centre midfielder, usually Yarmouk or Janout, would join the defence in a back three. covering for him. This was a success and shows Frank adapting to challenges thrown his way, but also maximising the very most out of what he had available to him. When Brentford were first promoted, he reverted to a 3-5-2 a lot in order to contain the top teams and their opposition threats, but over time has evolved, which shows to me a very tactical, flexible coach and very promising when he's making that move to Tottenham Hotspur. When going forward, Brentford do attack on the break a lot, of course. After all, they have a very fast forward line with a creative machine behind them, but they also attack with 2v1s out wide, overloads at the back post, which suits Brennan Johnson a lot, and real fluidity on the eye, allowing for players to combine, thrive and get close to goal. It's quite evident that Frank gets the very best out of his sides when going forward. Just look at some of the names who have been thriving at Brentford in the Premier League and Championship. You look at Mbeumo, Vissa, Sade, Damsgaard, Tony, Benrahma, Ollie Watkins. But off the ball, it's a very high, aggressive man-to-man press that looks to suffocate the opposition when playing out and win the ball high, looking to trap the opposition once the play has tilted to one side of the pitch. The centre-backs in this system are vital. The centre-backs hang back before jumping onto the forward receiving the ball, then they either win the ball back or press aggressively. If they're too tight, they may be spun. So it's a real test of can they anticipate the play and can they win the ball, which to me really suits Tottenham Hotspur. If you look at the selection of centre-backs at Tottenham Hotspur, you have Romero, Van der Ven, Dragusin and Kevin Zanso. Van der Ven is obviously the quickest, but all of them are dual winners with physical dominance, good timing and aggression. Romero and Dragusin are sometimes off in their timings, which doesn't blend well with their added aggression, but overall I think Frank will get a lot out of the side off the ball. The forwards that are already there are very fast, meaning they press with sheer intensity, which then poses a very difficult task for teams trying to play out from the back, potentially forcing a mistake or a long ball where the centre-backs can latch onto, looking to win the duel with their dominance. The only thing Spurs are missing in this department off the ball is that defensive midfielder. Bergvall, Gray, Bentancur, Basuma, Sarr, all very decent players, some very promising, but there's a lack of dual winners, somebody to break up the play. So let's look at how Spurs may line up with potential signings. This is how I imagine Thomas Frank will line up, very similar to Ange Postecoglu in player selection, but different tactics of course. I think with Ange, as entertaining his style was at times, it was very easy to play against last season. It was very athletically demanding because he pushed so many players forward, to rotate, to move around, especially with the fullbacks in central positions, which always led to a very easy counter-attack every time they lost the ball. All you had to do was whack the ball into the channels and you'd be through and goal. It was easy. Spurs players was always chasing back monumental yards, which led to injuries as well. But back to the lineup. The back four is an easy pick for me. Frank will love Pedro Porro, and I really think will unleash his burst and creativity even more. The midfield is where it gets interesting. A pivot of Bergvall and Gray wouldn't work. You need some experience and someone to cut out that play, prevent the counter-attacks. Palhinha or Sanderberg do that for me. In the attacking midfield, Eze has been discussed widely on social media as a fantastic signing, but if they can't attract him, I'd still encourage Spurs to go out and get a number 10, but Kulusevski and Maddison would thrive in this role too. The number 10 at Brentford was Damsgaard. His role in build-up was important. He'd drop in deep, unmarked, look to pick up the ball, pull players into him and create space for others. Maddison, at his best, does this very easily, but whether or not that sharpness of recent years can be replicated anymore is a slightly different question. On the left, you want a fast, tricky dribbler with quality in the final third. Antonio Nusa epitomises that for me. He is a little injury prone, but he brings quality to the final third and that transition up the pitch. Odegaard would be also very good here. Son too. Tell if he was kept on. But this overall is how I see Frank lining up. It's worth noting that Archie Gray and Brennan Johnson were two players that the Dane was desperate for at Brentford and will certainly be amongst Spurs' starting 11. Tactically it's flexible, the fullbacks are athletic, which is what Frank wants, hence why they'll be sprinting forwards to support the wingers in transition, bringing a real wide threat to Spurs once again, creating those wide overloads on either side, setting up at that back post cross really well, where I really believe Brennan Johnson will be put to real effect. In low build-up, Spurs matched that Brentford shape. The likes of Archie Gray, Pedro Porro, Lucas Bergvall will help unleash them into the next phase of the pitch, where we look into the middle third, where I see a 2-4-4 like shape, before pushing numbers forward up in the attacking department. If Spurs are looking for solidity at the back in transition, looking to maintain some numbers back, then the role of Archie Gray in that right centre midfield position could cover that right space, which would allow Pedro Porro to fly forwards, exactly the same as to what Frank did with Keane Lewis Potter. However, to conclude, Tottenham fans, you are getting a very exciting, adaptable, top man manager who really prioritises his connection across to his players and how he communicates. The players at Spurs currently massively suit Frank's style of play, and this is someone who's transitioned at every level in English football. In the Championship, his Brentford side before promotion began to dominate the ball more, sharing much more possession, and then they succeeded. After promotion, Brentford became more counter-attacking in their approach, and they succeeded. As soon as Brentford really solidified their position as a Premier League team and recruited more expansively, they began to play entertaining and very attacking football, and this was successful. It's a much bigger ask when you compare this to the jump from Brentford to Spurs, especially as he doesn't have an amazing cup record or any European record, and then considering many managers have failed at the North London club, but it's a fact that you can't really predict. It's potentially an area that's wrong with the club from the very top with the likes of Daniel Levy. But if you give the man time, some backing, then I'd back him to succeed. Thank you guys for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, make sure to smash a like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate the support as of late, it's been fantastic. Let me know what you think to Thomas Frank leaving Brentford to join Spurs, and I'll see you guys in the next one.